that almost every day we're hearing either about a new emerging type of fraud or scam, or hearing about someone who's lost a fortune or life savings to fraudsters or scammers. So who can we turn to for help? Joining me today are representatives from 3 agencies who are all working to protect us from frauds and scams. But before I introduce our guests, I would like to do a little poll. So Sophie, if you don't mind helping me, we have 3 poll questions which we'd like to ask you to respond to. So the first question is, what famous Depression-era bank robber did the FBI bring to justice? A, was it Al Capone? B, was it John Dillinger? Or C, was it Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow? So please see if you can respond to our poll question. We'll take a quick minute. Not seeing any responses yet. I'll ask that question again. What famous Depression-era bank robber did the FBI bring to justice? Was it Al Capone, John Dillinger, or Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow? Okay. Oh, all right. Most folks think it's Al Capone. A few folks think it's John Dillinger. 58% say Al Capone, 42% John Dillinger. The correct answer is John Dillinger. All right. Well, let's see what our next poll question is. Whose mission is it to protect consumers and competition from preventing anti-competitive, deceptive, and unfair business practices through law enforcement, advocacy, education, without unduly burdening legitimate business activities? Is it the World Bank? Is it Disney World? Or is it the Federal Trade Commission? Let's give folks a few minutes to respond to those questions, to that poll question. Again, all right, let's see what responses they have. Oh, everybody got that right. Our guest is going to be extremely happy to learn that. And let's see our final poll question. One more poll question before we turn to our guest. All right, which agency has the statutory responsibility of prosecuting criminal cases brought on by the federal government? Is it the United States Attorney's Office, the Federal Drug Administration, FDA, or the Justice League? This is a bit of a tricky one. Again, which agency has the statutory responsibility of prosecuting criminal cases brought by the federal government? One, is it the United States Attorney's Office, the Federal Drug Administration, FDA, or the Justice League? Okay, and what are our responses? I guess our guest from the U.S. Attorney's Office is going to be happy to see those results. Thank you very much for responding to our poll questions. Now let's meet our guests from the FBI, the Federal Trade Commission, and the United States Attorney's Office. With us is Supervisory Special Agent Ron Manuel, who leads the FBI Los Angeles Cyber Task Force, which is comprised of special agents, state and local task force officers, intelligence analysts, computer scientists, and other support staff at the FBI Los Angeles. The task force is responsible for investigating criminal cyber activities impacting the greater Los Angeles area. We're also joined today by Maricel Segura from the FTC, who is the Regional Director for the Federal Trade Commission's Western Region Los Angeles office. The office has successfully prosecuted a wide variety of matters, including those involving false advertising, tech support, telemarketing scams, unlawful debt collection and debt settlement, and data protection issues. And with us too is Monica Tate, who has been an assistant United States attorney for more than 20 years. Monica is also a deputy chief of the major fraud section in Los Angeles and the elder justice coordinator for the Central District of California. Previously, she was a staff attorney at the United States at the Federal Trade Commission. Welcome to you all. Supervisory Special Agent Ron Manuel, would you like to kick things off by telling us about the FBI and how they're protecting us from frauds and scams?
Yeah, sure thing, and thanks for that welcome. I would have gotten that last question wrong and picked the Justice League, I think. Well, thank you everyone for having me. Normally when you meet with somebody from the FBI, it's usually a bad day because you're either a victim of a crime and we're speaking to you about that crime, or you're a criminal and we're putting handcuffs on you and taking you to jail. So it's good for allowing me to break that mold. So thank you very much. Like Strat said, my name is Ron Manuel. I'm a supervisory special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I actually have a little bit of a slideshow, which I'll share with you at this moment. And I'll go over real quick what I cover, and then in general, what the FBI's role in cyber, some of the threats that we're seeing, and some resources that are available to you. Just a quick thumbs up or a quick check. Can you all see my slideshow?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I'm a supervisory special agent for a cyber task force as part of the FBI Los Angeles office. You can see our jurisdiction here. It's 7 counties of Southern California, and we have a territory as far north as San Luis Obispo, as far inland as the Inland Empire, Riverside and San Bernardino, and as far south as Orange County. So a really, really big territory. In our territory, we have 19 million people in our jurisdiction, covering 40,000 square miles. So in terms of population, it's the largest by far of any field office. Among the 56 field offices in the FBI, we have the largest population. A little bit about our cyber program in general. So we actually have, as part of FBI LA, six squads or 6 units that focus on operations and investigations. I'm the supervisor for one of 2 cyber criminal squads, and then together we form the entirety of the LA Cyber Task Force, which consists of agents and then local officers, those that are part of local and state jurisdictions. So like entities like LA Police Department, LA Sheriff's Department, San Luis Obispo District Attorney's Office, all the local agencies, that are part of the local jurisdiction that we cover. Along with our agents and task force officers, we also have computer scientists, analysts, even administrative staff. So lots of opportunities. If you don't want to be a sworn officer, you could also do a lot of those things as part of the task force. We also have 4 national security cyber squads that focus on nation-state cyber threats. And then we have 2 digital forensic squads that help out when there are, we do a search warrant and we see some digital evidence or digital devices. We have some specialists that helps us extract that data for our cases. So in general, the FBI's primary role is in investigating cyber crimes that happened to those in the United States. Just like any other crime, crime happens, might be a violation of a federal crime. The FBI will open up a case and start investigating it in the hopes of, identifying that criminal and then imposing consequences on that criminal. Cyber is a little unique, though, in that not only are we working that case, as we're working cybercrime, what we're also doing is learning how are the criminals conducting those cyber crimes. Things like where are they coming from? What type of malicious software might they be using or tools? What are their tactics and techniques? What are the indicators of compromise? Along with what are the crimes that they're conducting? We collect a lot of that information. We don't just hold that close hold. We actually share that with the greater cybersecurity community. As you can imagine, we learn a lot about cyber crimes and techniques that cyber criminals are using. So we share that with folks in the private sector, with other agencies like DHS that are in charge of, safeguarding federal networks, even the Department of Defense, because they are in charge of, defending their own .mil networks. We share that because the things that we learn help bolster their own defenses. We shut out the private sector, along with, and as part of our investigations. What we're also doing is, and you'll see the word kind of highlighted there, attribution. And that's kind of the bread and butter of what we do in these investigations. Cybercrime happens, impacts somebody in the Los Angeles area. We actually figure out who is the bad guy behind the keyboard, or the group of bad guys behind the keyboard, so that we can impose consequences on them. You might be familiar, the consequences I kind of alluded to or joked to earlier. We find them, we put handcuffs on them, we start prosecuting them, and work with folks like Monica at the U.S. Attorney's Office. Unfortunately, not the Justice League, but the U.S. Attorney's Office, who are just as great as the Justice League and Superman and Batman at prosecuting those individuals. But we also work with folks in our intelligence community partners in the military. They do a lot of things overseas in terms of imposing consequences and doing a lot of things that the bad guys are doing to us. I can't get into too much detail, but where we fit in the FBI is that attribution piece. But because before you can take action on an entity, you actually need to know first who to take action on. So that's where finding that actual bad guy behind the computer comes into play for us. So real quick, I'll talk about a couple of threats that I think are most applicable to you all. Business email compromise, which I think we've talked about a lot, and I think AARP has talked about a lot, and ransomware. So real quick, business email compromise, and I think someone mentioned a CEO scam or CEO impersonation. It could be a form of that, but in general, BEC or business email compromise is where a victim receives an email purporting to be from a known or reputable source, and then gets that victim to transfer money to an account usually belonging to a criminal. It's a devastating crime, upwards of billions and billions in losses. The other threat that we see quite a bit and that we investigate, more of a newer trend, it's been around for a while, but it's becoming more impactful now, is ransomware. Ransomware is where the criminal will deny you access. They'll intrude your networks, they'll intrude your computers, and then deny you access to your own data and your own networks, completely shut you down. And then the criminals are the only ones that can unencrypt or they have the key to unlock all your data and your own systems, and they'll hold you for ransom for that key, hence the name ransomware. So what's the impact of all of this? I got a couple studies, one on the left, one on the right, from cybersecurity organizations that try to guesstimate how much damage it's doing to our society or to our economies. On the left, it shows that cybercrime, we lose about 11.4 million per minute due to cybercrime. That's not per month or per year, that's per minute. You do the math, that's about 6 trillion a year. Another study on the right guesstimates that we lose about 1 trillion a year. So it's a lot of money, 1 trillion and 6 trillion from two different studies. It's a big variance though. And why is that variance so big? And why am I pointing that out? I'm pointing that out because cybercrime is so impactful and significant and damaging to the point that it can no longer be accurately calculated. You have two separate studies that are $5 trillion apart from each other. So really staggering amount of damage that's being done. And so with that, I wanted to point out some quick resources. So if you fall victim to a cybercrime, we ask that you submit that to our website, ic3.gov. That allows us to understand those threats. Like I said, we learn about those threats, break them apart, and then we share that with the greater community so that everyone else becomes stronger. So it really, really helps us out if you share it with us. And not only that, the more that you share, the more that you let us know what's going on, we're able to connect a lot of those dots and open up cases on bigger enterprises that are conducting a lot of these cyber attacks. I also have a couple other websites if you're interested in ransomware. There's stopransomware.gov, and then just basic cyber hygiene type of resources. Stopthinkconnect.org and staysafeonline.org. Really, really good resources. You can go to those websites. You'll start hitting some drop-down menus or inactive menus, and it asks you, if you have a small business, what can you do to protect your small business network? I have a child at school. What can I do to prevent cyberbullying? So those websites have some really good resources. And of course, you can always reach out to us at the FBI, the local, every field office, the 56 around the nation has a cyber task force. So you feel free to reach out to us. And then I also mentioned DHS CISA. They offer a lot of good services as well. And that's all I have. I'll pass it on to my colleagues. And
thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Special Agent. That was some really important and helpful information that you shared there. Let's hear now from Marisol Segura with the Federal Trade Commission.
Great, thank you. And I just want to see if I can share my screen. Are you seeing my presentation? It should say Federal Trade Commission.
Yes, we are.
Perfect. I have 3 screens in front of me, so sometimes I don't know which one is showing. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to share a little bit more about the FTC and what we do specifically what we do to promote identity protection, data security, and how we help you keep your information safe. First, a note about who we are. The FTC is the nation's bipartisan consumer protection agency. Our mission is to stop deceptive practices and unfair business practices. We engage in various activities. One of them is just straight enforcement work. So you heard from the FBI, they do criminal work. We do civil law enforcement. So that means we bring cases against companies that violate the law. It can be anything from a robocaller to people making bogus health claims to even more established companies that are violating the law in some way or deceiving consumers. We also engage in consumer and business outreach in that we offer resources to the public on how to prevent falling for a scam or how they can help their neighbors learn a little bit more about scams on the rise. We guide those in what to do if they experience a scam and give consumers tools in some instances on how to fix the damage when they do have a problem. And specifically with identity theft. Our agency is pretty small for a federal agency. We're about 1,100 people. Most of our employees are in the DC area, but we have 8 regional offices throughout the country. And the Western region, Los Angeles office covers a region of the United States. We cover specifically region support to Southern California, Southern Nevada, Arizona, and Hawaii. So that's just a little bit of who we are. We receive consumer reports, and I'm not going to say complaints because the report, sometimes people haven't fallen victim to a crime or a fraud, but they see it and they report it to us. And so this data, this is a map, and it shows data from our consumer Sentinel network where people can directly report fraud or deception and other consumer concerns to us. And we share that information with other law enforcement agencies. So we accept complaint reports from groups throughout the country, including other federal agencies. Sometimes state attorneys general also send their complaints and reports to us, and that's what make up these numbers. To date, we report this publicly on a website called Explore Data at ftc.gov, and to date, we've received over 1.3 million reports about fraud, identity theft, and other consumer issues in the United States. And we do the top 10 categories. And as you can see here, the top complaint category is identity theft, which isn't always the case, but this year it is. More people are filing reports about identity theft than before. And in a minute, I'm going to talk to you about how you can get your reports to the FTC so that it can be shared with other law enforcement agencies and explain why that's important. But first, I want to address identity theft specifically and what we are doing, the FTC is doing about it. So, just putting into context what identity theft is. It happens when someone uses your personal information to open accounts, file taxes, to buy things. And it can happen in a variety of ways. For example, someone might open a credit line in your name. Maybe in another scenario, someone might apply for a tax refund in your name, apply for a job, or get medical care all in your name with the use of your social security number and other information. I mean, this can lead to serious issues, as we all know, including stress, not just the legal issues of entangling the obligation and time and money it takes to recover. So what we've done in response to this problem is that we've created a website. So in instances when someone feels like they're subject to identity theft, we've created an easy way to report it and get help. So this is our website, identitytheft.gov. and it's a place to report identity theft and get a recovery plan in place. In fact, in most situations, your report to identitytheft.gov takes the place of a police report. Because it actually asks for a lot of the information surrounding the incident, and it can save you a lot of time and energy going down. Instead of going down to the police department, you can start your plan of action through identitytheft.gov. If you create an account through this system, you'll get reminders and you can update and track your progress. We have pre-filled out forms and letters for you. So sometimes when people are victims of identity theft, what will happen is the wrong information will end up on their credit report because it's a credit card that they did not open their name, or it might show a default on a loan that you didn't take out. Well, we have sample letters for you to write and forms to fill out to help you remove that information from your credit report with the credit reporting agencies. The site is also available in Spanish at roboidentidad.gov. And so this is one web resource that we provide to the public to help create a plan and prevent and stem the further damage that might happen from an incident of identity theft. So I want to jump back to our fraud reporting system briefly. This is Consumer Sentinel is the software that we use to house our complaints. It's where we make reports to show complaint trends, but this is where you, as a member of the public, would report fraud to us. Whether or not you've lost money to a scam, whether or not you fell victim or were confronted directly, we ask that you report it. If you see something, say something. And so the public can file reports using this website, reportfraud.ftc.gov, also available in Spanish, reportefraude.ftc.gov. After a person reports what happened, they can, through this website, may get advice on what to do next. There's drop-down menus asking specifically about the problem, what you confronted, whether it's debt collection, credit repair, what have you, and there will be some tips on what you can do next to report the damage. Now, the FTC, what we do is we look at complaint trends, and it informs what we do on the law enforcement side. So we're not going to respond to the reports. You may hear from us if we're investigating the company you're reporting about, but for the most part, what these reports do is they help us see trends, and they also are available to other law enforcement to find out what's happening in the country, even in your state and your city. These reports help us bring law enforcement actions and also help us and other law enforcement partners see patterns and determine where we should be spending our resources. Where are the problems? Where are the problems arising now? And so people who file reports, you don't have to give your name or personal information. You can remain anonymous. Of course, if it's always helpful to have contact information, especially if we're investigating a company or some practices. It's nice to be able to follow up with somebody about their experience, but you don't have to provide your personal information. And we get anonymous tips all the time. And so even though we cannot respond to the personal reports, each report makes a difference to us and the law enforcement partners we share reports with. And so lastly, I just want to, dovetailing to that, it does inform what we do in terms of enforcement. And I'll discuss one of our enforcement matters. We bring cases, we enforce the law. Now, some cases we bring are against companies who misuse consumers' data to their own end. We bring cases when companies are violating the law and harm many, many people. And so Vivint is one of these companies Vivint is a home security company. It was a home security monitoring company that was violating the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Now these are the rules that govern your credit reports. The Fair Credit Reporting Act says who can access your credit report, what information they can put on your credit report. They provide the rules of the road about how to fix the problems on the credit report. So this company, we allege, was violating the Fair Credit Reporting Act. But what they did was they were relying on door-to-door salespeople to sell its home security products. So they sold these products on a commission-only basis. So there was some incentive to get high sales. And the products were kind of costly. So what happened is the salespeople would sign the prospective customer up for some credit to purchase the product. Well, some salespeople were engaging in a practice that is known in the credit reporting industry as white paging, which means basically you find another individual with a name similar to the customer's with better credit, and use that person's credit history to approve the prospective unqualified customer. So yes, Vivint, in some instances, Vivint salespeople were stealing other people's credit information to approve a different person for a loan to purchase the security product. That was a big problem. And what ensued from that were that some customers that bought the Vivint product defaulted on their loans, and it harmed the credit of those who were unaware their credit was even used to qualify for the loan or to approve the loan in the first instance. And so, and those folks who had no idea that credit was opened in their name or that their credit report was used in this way were hounded by debt collectors. Now, how does this relate to our consumer reports? Well, in this matter, many consumers complained to the Federal Trade Commission and the Better Business Bureau, who shares their complaint data with us. They accused Vivint. They said, of identity theft. They said, this company, I had no idea. I didn't have a loan with this company. I have no relationship with this company. But the next thing I know, I receive a call from a debt collector saying that I defaulted on this Vivint loan and account. I'd never heard of them before. And that's how, that's important information for us in supporting this matter. It's important information for us in finding out who needs to be redressed, who's experienced a problem. And so here in this matter, Vivint settled with us for $20 million in civil penalties. And the order that we filed in court requires Vivint to adhere to very stringent requirements on going forward, monitoring of their credit program, monitoring of their salespeople, also very detailed requirements on when their loans can be sent out to debt collection. So that's just an example of our enforcement work that touches on data security and identity protection. The next slide is just a reminder that you want to keep up on the latest scams and share them with your community. It's one thing for me to tell people what the scams are, but really we listen to our neighbors and our friends and our family. So you can follow us on social media at FTC. We have a Facebook page, facebook.com/Federal Trade Commission. But one really great way to get information, we do consumer alerts letting you know what scams are on the rise. So ftc.gov/consumer alerts. Sign up for those. They're very digestible, small bites, letting you know what's coming. And you can share those with your friends and family so that they know what to spot on in terms of scams. And they've been really helpful during COVID because, as you can imagine, COVID scams went through the roof, all related to cures and preventions and the various notifications we're getting. There's some scammer following the government and trying to pretend like they're the government. So these alerts have been very helpful to the public. Finally, there's some more resources here on consumer.ftc.gov, consumer.gov. If you go to consumer.gov, you'll see a page like this. This is what I'll end with. This is what it looks like. These are just kind of practical subject matter areas where we give practical advice to the public, very plain and simple, step-by-step sort of tips and advice on what to do to manage your money, how to handle credit, loans, and debt, and certainly identity theft. So with that, I will end it. I thank you for having me, and I will be here for any questions. So I am going to stop my screen share.
Thank you very much, Marcella. That was some really great information. And yes, I think reporting really helps, as well as signing up for those alerts. The more we know ahead of time, the more protected we can stay when we ever approached by such a scammer. So thank you very much. Folks, if you do have a question, please feel free to post it in chat. We're going to next hear from Monica Tate with the U.S. Attorney's Office, after which we're going to open it up for your questions. I'm going to invite you to come off mute and ask our guests any questions, or if you're more comfortable putting your question in chat, we'll also look at those. So Monica, I hand it over to you.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
And can you see the screen properly? Meet the U.S. Attorney's Office?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Monica Tate. I'm a federal prosecutor here in Los Angeles. And the views that I express today are my own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the U.S. Attorney's Office, the DOJ, or the United States. But I am happy to address you today to participate in this event with the AARP. So meet the U.S. Attorney's Office. You've already heard a little about us through Ron about what we do. We're an office full of federal prosecutors, and there's 94 U.S. Attorney's offices throughout the United States. So the people on the criminal side, like me, we investigate and we charge criminal cases. Usually they're brought to us by agencies like the FBI. We are basically overall the counsel for the United States government in the federal court system, in addition to some of our attorneys back in Main Justice in Washington, D.C. So here in the Central District of California, just like that lovely map that Ron showed you from the FBI, we cover those same 7 counties, basically in partnership with the FBI. We have offices with prosecutors in Los Angeles, Santa Ana, and Riverside. And our prosecutors specialize. I'm in major frauds, and so I do all manner of fraud. Others are in the cyber section, intellectual property, and there's many other specialties here as well, public corruption. I won't name all of them, but we tend to specialize in different kinds of crimes. And we work with all the federal agencies and sometimes state agencies as well, and many more than I've listed there. But they bring cases to us when they believe that a crime has been committed and they want to consult with us to see whether we agree and whether we'll charge it. So I am the Elder Justice Coordinator for the Central District, and I thought that I could mention a couple things about that because AARP, sometimes there's a lot of older adults who listen to these programs. So the Elder Justice Coordinator has statutory responsibilities. Again, there's 94 of me, 1 in each district. And we're supposed to assist with prosecuting or assisting in prosecution of elder abuse cases, which I'll define in a minute, and also conducting outreach. Hey, that's why I'm here today. So elder abuse is pretty broadly defined. Abuse, neglect, and exploitation of an elder, I think the statute defines it as 60 or over. And so financial exploitation is one of the things that I like to prosecute. Sometimes the ones that we do more often, I would have to say, in our I mean, that may not be true. Let me just retract that. But sometimes the financial exploitation is by strangers, such as the business email compromise, romance scams, more appropriate for older adults, I think, other imposter scams, and Ponzi schemes, investment scams. Sometimes it's by trusted persons, family members, attorneys, caregivers, and we do some of those cases too. But the difference between the federal prosecutor's office and the local DA's office, one of the key differences is there has to be a federal nexus, and usually we focus on the bigger cases. And so especially in the abuse by trusted persons, most of those cases are going to fall into the DA's more appropriate jurisdiction rather than the federal jurisdiction, just because it may not rise to the level of a federal case, such as by crossing state lines or involving a lot of victims or involving a lot of money. So since I'm batting third, I'm going to talk about an example of a case in which we employed some of the tools that you've already heard about from the other presenters. So this is a page from a press release. And again, this is a case that's just been indicted, and everyone is innocent until proven guilty in our country. So I am going to just be talking about the government's allegations, which have not been proved in the courts. But this is a press release, and I'm hewing closely to what we've disclosed in the press release about a recent case. You may have heard, you probably have heard if you're savvy, which I think you probably are if you're attending today, about gift card scams. Why is everybody talking about gift card scams? It's because it's very common for scam artists to trick people into buying gift cards for some purpose that the scammers are very good at explaining. and then reading the gift card numbers over the phone to the scam artist in order to solve some problem. So you may ask yourself, why? Well, some people ask themselves, why would anyone fall for that? And I can address that. And the quick answer to that is they target a lot of people, and they're just trying to get you when you're down. They're trying to get you on your bad day when you're not, you don't have everything clear in your mind that day for whatever reason, and you just fall for it. And they tap into an emotional part of your brain, and they know what they're doing, and they're very good at it. So no one should be ashamed about falling for one of these scams. But what happens? Why are scam artists interested in gift cards? So in this case, what we alleged is that victims of scams were induced to buy gift cards. And in this case, particularly issued by Target, which is, you know what Target is. So the examples of the scams included tech support scams, which, for example, a scam where, let's say you get a pop-up on your computer screen while you're browsing that tells you you're infected by a virus, and there's a phone number they want you to call, and it seems like they're trying to help. So that's actually probably a scam. If you call that phone number, you might get asked to buy a gift card to fix the problem. Another more common scam that was used in this, in our case, we allege, was an imposter scam. Like I've gotten many of these messages myself. You're going to be under arrest, and we're going to come and pick you up right now, but you have to fix this problem by buying gift cards. So the victims are tricked in one way or another to go buy cards at Target and read the card numbers over the phone to the scammer to fix some non-existent problems. And we alleged in this case that 3 defendants obtained more than 5,000 gift cards from just one source that called itself the Magic Lamp. And this Magic Lamp sold gift card information using a messenger application. And so we alleged that these defendants got the gift cards from the Magic Lamp, and they got them often on the very same day that the fraud victims had purchased the gift cards at the direction of the telephone scammer. One runner charged in the case traveled to as many as 17 Target stores in a single day to conduct gift card transactions with those gift card numbers that they got from the victims. And then one of the defendants would resell. So the runner would go and buy merchandise at Target and bring it back to a defendant, and the defendant resold that merchandise, which was usually in the form of electronics. And then you would use some of those, the money that he got from reselling, to go back and pay the Magic Lamp, the people from whom he got the gift card numbers in the first place. So those are our allegations in that case, in a nutshell. This case involved the use of fraud reports that were made to IC3.gov and to the FTC. And so generally, just to illustrate further, Ron mentioned a little bit about this. But those reports, not only do they show trends, everybody can use them for different purposes, meaning that different government agencies. But what we're able to do sometimes is that when victims have complained about being victimized by a gift card scam, and let's say we find their gift card number in the course of our investigation, we can go back to IC3.gov or the FTC's site, and we can search the gift card number, and maybe we'll even find the name of the victim who reported it, and that has happened. So we can go back and find the victim, get the evidence from the victim, which then helps us make the case that we're already working on. So that's often how it happens, in my personal experience, is that we're already looking at something, and then we go back to the government databases where people have reported to see if there are people who have complained about what we're already looking at, because otherwise it's like a needle in the haystack. You don't know which of the cases, you don't know which fraudsters are victimizing a lot of people just from reading one complaint. When you've already figured out that you're dealing with a group that's victimizing a lot of people, that's when you can go back, and those complaints are really helpful. They're super helpful. So we are able to conduct interviews with victims that way, and sometimes we will get local police reports that they may have filled out that are really detailed and may have all sorts of evidence in them, and it really helps our investigations. So just to repeat the chorus, if you're ever a victim of these kinds of scams, please report it to one or both of these sites, and please be detailed. Your details support the use of investigative tools that we use during the investigations, and these tools are what we need to discover who's responsible for what happened. They help to prove the extent of the crime and how pervasive it is, and loss. And as I said, details matter. If you're victimized, especially phone numbers, websites, bank account numbers that you were told to send money to, gift card numbers, all of that is important, and potentially helpful because it could come up in a search result. So moving off of the specific case example, I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about what the Department of Justice has to assist people who are falling, who need help with dealing with crime, and how it affects them. So we've established this elder fraud hotline, which is 1-833-FRAUD-11. And this was established, I think, in 2020, and it is great. It's a national elder fraud hotline. And what's great about it is that there are trained people on the other end of the phone who can really walk you through all the various steps that you could do or that you ought to do to see if you can deal with the experience of having been scammed. Also probably stop you from getting scammed if you call them for advice. But it's a great resource. You're assigned a case manager if you call in, and they will help you fill out forms. They'll help you fill out that complaint form. So if you know, everybody here is pretty savvy, I think, but if you know of an older adult who might need some help reporting something that happened to them, I would encourage you to tell them about this hotline, because it's designed to really help people navigate their way through the various places where the complaint should go. I will tell you that in most instances, the federal agencies, it's rare that we're able to intervene in a particular person's case at the particular time, in the kind of work that we do. And I think that's been suggested by what Maricela said. But it is rare. But this comes close. This National Elder Fraud Hotline. They're not going to prosecute someone for you, but they are going to. That we're going to walk you through things. They're going to tell you where to go to report your ID theft so that you can, maybe freeze your credit. They're going to tell you how to fill out the complaints and where to find information and what to do to maybe help protect yourself from not getting re-victimized. And then I want to talk about another resource that the Department of Justice has set up. This is another elder justice resource, and this is the Elder Justice Initiative website, www.justice.gov/elderjustice. This is a really great website. It's sort of a clearinghouse that links you to other resources. So especially if you have the kind of a elder fraud matter that's a kind of person-to-person elder fraud matter, maybe it's not going to be a federal case, but you may want to find local help, and you may not know who in your local area deals with the kind of problem that you're having. So if you go to our website, we actually will link you to information relating to local and state agencies. It kind of has a question and answer format if you click where I've circled there on the button, and it'll ask you what kind of a problem are you having, and give you some drop-down menus, and based on your responses, it will find you referral sources in your area that you can call to see if you can get help from an appropriate agency. And that's it. And I want to thank you for having me. And I'm going to also stick around to see if I can help answer any questions.
Well, Monica, Maricela, and Special Agent Manuel, I really thank you for the work that you're doing to help keep our community safe, and for sharing the information today. Let's see whether we have some folks that have questions. I see a couple questions here in chat, which I think some have been answered, but for those who haven't seen them, I will read some again. The first one here comes from Lynn Miller. is there anything that we can do to stop phone calls claiming to reduce credit card debt, but in reality are trying to get personal information for identity theft? I know the FBI is involved in someone has been scammed, but I guess she was looking for prevention tips. Anybody want to respond to that or share anything that folks can do? Some folks who may be listening on the phone who may have seen this in chat.
Yeah, I can jump in. I answered it in the chat, but in case anyone didn't see, a couple of things you can do for your cell phone. Most major cell phone providers do offer a free call filter app. It might be called something different if you have AT&T or if you have Verizon or T-Mobile, but those providers will typically have a call filter app that will do a good job of filtering out a lot of those robocalls or scam calls. And you can also report, if you do get a call like that, you can report it using that app, and it'll add to the repository and make that app better. For those that have landlines, which are becoming obviously less and less of a thing, but if you have a landline, there is a Do Not Call Registry. You can Google that, look up just the National Do Not Call Registry and register your landline number to that. Again, there's no perfect solution. You just have to, of course, practice due diligence. Don't answer those calls if you know for sure it's a scammer. But those are some pretty good measures that you can take.
I have a comment as well. So I'm aware of cases that are brought by Main Justice attorneys that kind of goes to the root of what you're asking about, Ms. Miller, in which the government has taken action against companies in the United States that actually divert the phone calls, and in other words, overseas scammers calling in. This is more scam related rather than the sort of credit card debt stuff. But whatever, if that's a scam, this might get captured. But they are basically, there's companies in the United States who are the choke points, and they distribute the scam calls from overseas scammers all across the United States. And I know the Department of Justice has brought actions to enjoin that behavior and to stop the U.S. companies from distributing the calls throughout the United States.
Thank you. Marcella, anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, just reinforcing that the reports matter. When they report a number, and you can complain. Someone asked just right now in the chat, I was a victim of an online fraud in 2019. Can I still complain? Yes, absolutely do complain. When you complain about a robocaller and you give the number, it gives us a piece of information. It gives the carriers a piece of information of what numbers to proactively block. Also, I needed to give the disclaimer that Monica gave. Such good habits, Monica. I only speak for myself. I do not speak on behalf of the commission or any one commissioner. So any guidance and opinions are mine alone.
Maricela, the only way I remember it is I put it on slide 1.
But that's discipline right there. Okay. But anyway, I did see somebody asked about Vivint and whether or not they had restitution for it. Yes, I think I called it a $20 million civil penalty. Part of the judgment was a civil penalty. It wasn't all civil penalty, and part of it was restitution for victims who lost money as a result. And yes, Vivint is still in business. A lot of times we see companies where we're looking at some of these companies are not a fraud through and through, right? They're not, and so it's like a portion of their business went awry, and we're here to try to get them to fix it. It doesn't mean they go out of business. It means that they have to continue to do business in a lawful way. But a lot of times, like we have cases similar to what Monica's talking about, where they're just frauds through and through, and there's just no way they can operate legitimately because they have nothing legitimate to offer. So yes, you will see a number of our cases against bigger companies where the company continues, but hopefully better and clearing up their problems.
Right, get them abide by the business laws. I'm going to invite Stacy on to come and ask her question. She has a question, I believe, about some insider protection. Stacy, are you with us? Would you care to ask your question? Okay, let's see. Let's go to the next question. I think, Ron, you responded to that. I think Stacy's question was more about the privacy of somebody who may want to report a fraud or scam. Do they have some sort of protections? Would you care to respond or elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, with any informant or victim or witness that comes forward, the FBI goes to great lengths to anonymize that information or redact that information, working with the U.S. Attorney's Office with that as well. So yeah, I mean, it's something we've been doing for 100+ years, is safeguarding that information. If we didn't do a good job of doing that, no one would report anything to us, and that's certainly not the case.
Excellent, thank you. And Ruth, I see you're with us and you have a question. Would you care to ask your question? You're on mute, Ruth. There you go.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. I think I was a victim of ransomware in 2019. They froze up my computer with a real loud shrill, and I couldn't get back until I paid. So what are my recourse? Can I report that even though it happened 2019?
Yeah, and I can jump in on that one, Strat, and thanks for your question, Ruth. And sorry that happened to you. It's unfortunate and happens a lot more often than you think. But yes, you can still report it. That information is always helpful. For the FBI, we actually discourage payment of those ransoms because, one, you never know if you'll actually get your data back. And two, it just encourages that behavior. Ransomware and that whole model of ransomware, it only works because unfortunately victims do pay. So we preach prevention. There's a lot of things that you can do on the cyber side, and that would be a whole other presentation in and of itself. And I referenced the one website that you can go to learn more about what you can do to prevent ransomware, and that's stopransomware.gov. And I'll post that in the chat as well.
Okay, thank you. I have information. I mean, try to trace them.
Yeah, it'll be helpful. We'll take it. So submit it to ic3.gov, and then we can go from there.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Unfortunately, we seem to have run out of time. It's always time always flies when you're having fun and learning something really helpful. But before we thank our guests and close our call, I just want to put one more question to them. So how can the community help your agencies go about patching these folks, stopping frauds, protecting the community from frauds and scams? Any thoughts around that? Let's start off with Ron and then come to Maricela and Monica. Any suggestions on what the community can do to be supportive and helpful in working towards ending frauds and scams?
Sure, I'll highlight two things. Is one, learn as much as you can about the threats that are out there. I'm a cyber task force supervisor, so and we all know, and this very call is a sign of that we live more and more our actual lives in the digital world. We bank online, we go to school online, we work online, we shop online, we store our most valuable data online. If you're a medical office, you might have your patient records in some sort of online format. So learning about those threats is paramount, and then learning how to protect yourselves against those threats is paramount, because the Bureau and other law enforcement agencies, we can't arrest or prosecute our way out of that problem. It has to be prevented before it happens. It has to be stopped before it happens. And then the second thing is, unfortunately, if it does happen, just work with us, share that information with us. We can't understand or do anything about those threats unless we learn about them, and that comes from folks that are unfortunately targets of those types of attacks.
Thank you, Ron. Maricela?
Yeah, I think in that vein, sign up for our consumer alerts at ftc.gov/consumer alerts. This will tell you about scams on the rise. And then once you learn about that, you've signed up for the alert, tell someone else. Say, you know what, there is a package waiting scam happening. They're texting you to let you know that your package is waiting. And there's a link in that. That happened during the pandemic. If you learn about this, you can tell your loved ones, your family members, your friends. Pass it on. That's how we can prevent fraud, because Ron is absolutely right. We're not going to, prosecute our way out of this problem.
Absolutely. The more folks know, the more they can help keep each other protected. Great. Monica, let's end with you.
Well, thank you, Strat. But I think everything that Ron said, I completely agree with, and Maricela as well. I don't have much to add. I guess I would say one thing that would be good, because I think there is some victim shaming that happens. A lot of us, when you hear about people falling victim to scams, we think that's never going to happen to me. And sometimes we talk about that, and as if somebody was dumb for falling for a scam, but they are not dumb for falling for a scam. So I think that if we could have a little more empathy for the victims, I think that would be just a nice thing for the community, because I do hear a lot of victim shaming.
Absolutely. Thank you all very much for that. Well, our conversation today has really been packed with very helpful information, and really like to say thank you to my guests, Monica Taylor, Assistant United States Attorney and Deputy Chief of the Major Fraud Section in Los Angeles, and the Elder Justice Coordinator within the Central District, to Maricela Segura with the Regional Director for the Federal Trade Commission's Western Region Los Angeles office, and FBI Supervisory Special Agent Ron Manuel for sharing their time and their advice. I'd like to also thank all you guests for joining us today with this conversation, asking your questions, sharing your comments. We really appreciate you being with us, and we hope that you found this conversation helpful. In the meantime, if you have any questions about frauds or scams, please feel free to reach out to some of the resources that our guests shared. But you can also reach out to the AARP Fraud Watch Network at 877-908-3360, or simply by visiting aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network. Thank you very much, and this concludes our conversation today. Be safe.